Hello, welcome to a video lecture that I've put together for you on semiotics and counterculture, focusing particularly on posters and album covers and fashion of hippie culture. Wanted to focus first on posters and album covers, and this image is of Alton Kelly on the left. We saw him in the reunion video Rockin' the Red Dog. Poster artist, and the person on the right is Stanley Mouse, and the two of them work together on a number of poster projects, and especially for the Grateful Dead, and I wanted to show you some of their artwork. So this particular image with the skeleton with the roses as hair and as just all over the place. There's a wreath of roses, there's a bunch of roses, there's roses in the skeleton's hand, and this image has been used repeatedly in a number of different ways, but I think this was the original use of it for a rock poster, so for a rock concert, a rock show. And we can kind of see on the left and the right, if you look about halfway down, you see it says Family Dog, so that's where it's happening. And we see September 16th, September 17th. Down at the very bottom, they've done something with the blue and the red. And artistically, this is not necessarily semiotics, but I'm sure that you know that red and blue oftentimes clash a bit, and sometimes the red looks kind of electric against a blue background, and so they kind of played with that idea here. And so the text at the bottom where it says Oxford Circle, it's reversed from the text right above it where it says September 16th, September 17th. So we have the image itself. The skeleton has symbolism, meaning in it, visual meaning. The roses have visual meaning in it in terms of semiotics. And you also notice the lettering around here. Many of the poster artists focused heavily on lettering and hand lettering, and it kind of has that warped look to it. So, and it kind of appeals to people who have experienced things psychedelically. You kind of almost as if you have to be under the influence to read the poster. And we saw it in the Summer of Love video that we watched, that the one of the women who lived in the Haight-Ashbury, she was saying, I don't like the way they look, I don't like the way they talk. She said, I don't like their posters. And so this was, some of the things that she was talking about. So, and because it is so kind of far out and psychedelic, it's going to attract certain people to it, and by design also repel certain people. So, so there's one example of a Stanley Mouse, Alton Kelly collaboration. Here's another one, and so we don't have a skeleton on here. Instead, we have a young woman, so kind of Dionysian, I guess we might say, and we have kind of a Greek vase or something. We still have some of the same lettering going on. We also have the contrast in colors with the bright red or orange, and then the brown of the poster. So, and these things, you kind of have to look at them for a while. You might have to get closer and closer to kind of figure out exactly what it says. Again, this was something at the Family Dog. So here's something I think that was done for the Summer of Love, more expressive. And we see the Golden Gates. We also see, I can't read it, but I think there's actually text down there in what looks like a field of flowers. And again, we have a female form, again, kind of like a Greek goddess, Dionysian, and holding a flower, which is symbolic, the sun, symbolic, the tambourine, in her hand. And again, we have the red and the blue going on here. So moving along, this image, Stanley Mouse did it. It's known as Cats Out Under the Stars. It was a Jerry Garcia solo album. And so very Egyptian looking with the cat and the diamond and the fan shape behind it. Here's another Alton Kelly Stanley Mouse collaboration. Actually, I think we just saw that. So let me move on. So here we've got the skeleton again with the roses in her hair, some ribbons, and again we have this ornate lettering, and we can read this, pretty well, but maybe the first time someone saw it, or someone who is of an older generation, they might not have been able to read it, and so that's by design. Okay, this is also a Stanley Mouse design, and you may recognize it. It's for the Steve Miller Band, so very colorful. This one also by Stanley Mouse. It's for the band Journey off their album Departure, and you can kind of see, if you look closely, the word Journey is surrounding the scarab beetle in the middle, and looks like the sun and the moon and the earth, and and a scarab has particular symbolic meaning to it. This one is for a more recent band, Moon Alice and Doobie Decibel System, and this is 2015. You'll notice the time is 4:20, and the location is Slim's in San Francisco. And every now and then I notice on these posters, somewhere around the edge, at the very top or at the very bottom, there's some regular type. So we see a little bit of regular type there. Again, we've got some very electric, bright, expressive colors, and that they don't typically, you know, blend well together. We've got this bright pink or magenta or whatever you call it, and then this green as well, kind of neon. And again, we have a female figure. We also have, she's got flowers in her hair. She's got her dress is, off the shoulders. She's got a bird, which seems peaceful. And she's got a very, relaxed look on her face. There's also this blue background, and I'm not sure if there's anything going on there, but it's just kind of provides some texture. Again, we see this lettering that you almost have to get closer to it to kind of figure out what's going on. So very indicative of the poster art of the 60s, and we see it, brought into the 21st century as well. Okay, so this image is the Grateful Dead album American Beauty, and also done by Rick Griffin and Stanley Mouse. And so the words American and beauty are kind of hard to read, and again, that's by design. And not only does it say American Beauty, but if you look at it just right, it says American Reality down at the bottom instead of just beauty. So the word beauty can be looked at two different ways. Okay, and again, we have the rose as symbolism in the middle, and we also have kind of this wood texture around the back of it. A lot of album covers seem to have this kind of circular thing going on with them, and sometimes artists exploit that, because the album is inside, or the record, that round form, they might view it as kind of a mandala, and so mandalas are created by Buddhist monks, and they're meant to be, they're ornate, they take a lot of time, and yet they're kind of destroyed at the very end. So nothing lasts. Everything is kind of ephemeral and temporary, and so we can kind of see some elements of that going on here. Okay, this particular person, poster artist Rick Griffin, and he was kind of known for his eyes. So we're going to take a look at some of that. We see this poster for a concert with Jimi Hendrix and John Mayall, and looks like Albert King down at the bottom, and it looks like it's at Winterland or the Fillmore. And again, we have some plain text at the very bottom and plain text at the very top. We see the famous Rick Griffin eye, and we see this kind of reptile or snake or something as arms and limbs and tail. Also has wings on it. We also have this skull going on. We also have these flames around the outside. I'm going to come back and talk about these flames a little bit later in this, because this is all done by hand. And what I'm going to show you toward the end of this is how computer graphics have kind of changed the poster art experience a bit. And so not as much freehand and more kind of predictability in some of the design. Even some of the lettering has been turned into, fonts, typefaces that you could create text out of just by selecting these different letters. But of course, back in the day, these artists were doing this all by hand. So this is also this is for the Gathering of the Vibes, the Human Be-In. We saw that in the Summer of Love, and so the use of the Native American imagery is important. The lettering around the side also important. Moving on, this is also a Rick Griffin magic show, Big Brother and the Hold'em Company, Canned Heat Blues Band. Down at the bottom we see June 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. So some of the letters or the numbers, the dates are on top of the month, June. Again, you have to kind of decipher these, the text in these. And I'm not sure what the use of African American symbolism is in some of these posters, but I think it's supposed to tie in to American history, a lot of Americana going on in some of these images. This particular image is of the Grateful Dead album called Oxymoxa. You can see the name of it down there at the bottom. Oxymoxa doesn't mean anything. It's a palindrome. So AOXOMOXOA. And so one of the cool things about this album cover is, you could kind of hold it up in the mirror and you'd still basically see the same image. What's on the left is also on the right. Again, what we see on the left and the right has been done by hand, and I'm going to show you something later that's been done more with computers. We kind of have an Egyptian theme up at the top with those long wings and the cobras. Again, the hand lettering. We also have around this image, we see the skull, kind of skull and crossbones on here, but I don't think it's supposed to be as, pending doom as maybe we normally associate with skull and crossbones. But everything's kind of perfectly balanced in this image. Again, looking at the sun, we've got those flames coming out. Again, all done by hand. We also see mushrooms at the left and right, and kind of associated with psychedelics. We have many egg-like shapes on here. A couple of trees growing. They seem to be sprouting out of something. And looks like even images of maybe fetuses left and right in those underground capsules, and a little smoke coming out of the skull's head. I'm not sure what that means, but you can interpret it as you will. And I mentioned on the American Beauty album that it could also be seen as American reality. On this album, apparently, if you look at it just right, Grateful Dead at the top says, "We ate the acid." And I've never been able to see it myself. Maybe I should try holding it up in a mirror. But we're going to come back to this title again, "We ate the acid," I'm giving you a reading about psychedelic imagery, and I'll share that with you as well. So this artist is Wes Wilson, and heavily into lettering, and you can see by the images that are around him. Here's one of his posters down at the bottom. It says "At the Fillmore" at the top. Boy, it's going to take me a while to read some of this. I see his Chicago Blues Band, so Otis Rush. We also see the Grateful Dead, Canned Heat, Blues Band. We see the dates and the admission. And again, we have a female image here. And we also see some regular type at the very top and at the very bottom. Here's another Wes Wilson. Again, a female form, a snake. So we might associate that with the Garden of Eden. And we see Chuck Berry, Grateful Dead, some other artists. We see the dates. And so again, one of those posters you kind of have to study a little bit. This is another Wes Wilson. And you really have to stand in front of this for a while to kind of figure out what it's saying. I see the association, Along Comes Mary, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Grassroots, Sopwith Camel, Friday, Saturday, July 22nd, 23rd, Fillmore Auditorium. And again, we still have some normal text at the very top and the very bottom. This is another Wes Wilson, and I believe this was also done as a album cover for Santana. And so we have this lion, but you might notice just to the left and the right of his nose, his upper lip, we actually see a couple of faces in there. Down below the lion's face, we see a couple of legs down there. And again, we've got this very exotic text going on. Moving on, another Wes Wilson. Again, we have a female figure. She's holding a peace sign, and we have the unusual lettering. Here's another Wes Wilson. Frequently kind of did these Native American kind of feather or bird-like things going on. And another Wes Wilson. This is Oxford Circle, Big Brother and the Holding Company, Lee Michaels, and it's at the Avalon Ballroom. And again, we have some Native American imagery. The kind of pinwheels in his eyes and around his head, I think, are evocative of a psychedelic experience. And another Wes Wilson, we see down at the bottom, Grateful Dead, Big Mama, and the Big Mama Mae Thornton, Tim Rose, Hey Joe, and we see the dates, and it's at the Fillmore. So dance concert, and again, kind of a female figure. Another Wes Wilson, and this one is for Bob Dylan. So, and again, we kind of have this, his face is in profile and a black profile, like a shadow. Forgot what they call those, where you do those silhouettes, and sometimes you'll see them in people's homes, like they're kids or something. But then we also have this electric hair going on here. So, and a little bit of stylized text down at the bottom. Okay, so moving on. Another Wes Wilson, and a little bit easier to read, I think, on this one. Here on this slide, I'm capturing some imagery of third eyes. So, what is a third eye? A third eye is a window to the soul. Some people think it's the pineal gland. I've even seen articles about how fluoridation of water calcifies our pineal gland, and some people say you shouldn't ingest fluoride because you want to free up that inner mind, but that inner eye, that third eye. Some people think that LSD is a substance that helps to open up that third eye. Helps you to see with your mind rather than just with your eyes. So, okay. And here we have some hippie fashion. And so on the left It looks more like a modernized version of it, like something you might find on Amazon. We have the leather vest. We're going to see in the Woodstock video, Michael Lang is always seems to be wearing a leather vest. We see the peace signs, the peace symbol around her neck and also on her leather vest. And then we see the peace sign made with the hand. We also see the word peace. And we see all these flowers and day glow colors and, a headband and the granny glasses and kind of a, on the right, the dress is, kind of simple. Oftentimes, these are things that you wouldn't normally expect to find in a department store like Macy's. You kind of have to seek them out in retro or hand-me-down or these types of um, clothing stores, and you kind of have to piece these outfits together for yourself. So it's expressive as much as it is, or more so than it is consumerist. So um, obviously here we have some imagery that's evocative of Rastafarianism, Jamaica, Bob Marley, not just the image of him, but we have these colors, the orange or red and green and yellow and black all mixed together, the Jamaican flag colors. So definitely some semiotics and symbolism going on here. Here we have some kind of hippie zip-up hoodies, and oftentimes these are made in like Guatemala or something, and they're imported and they're pretty cheap. And but we see a lot of motifs going on, and many of these rainbows and peace symbols and spirals and that sort of thing. Also on this particular image, down on the lower left, it says something about Bohemian Mama. So one of the things we're looking at is boho fashion or boho chic, which is kind of retro hippie look. Okay, and here's some more. These are pullovers, but the same idea, and use of those graphics and symbols on there. Not sure what they mean, but it's cool. So here on the left, we've got a jean jacket that this is all. It may have been bought off a rack or bought from an artist or something like that, but the emphasis is on the fact that it's handmade. So this is not machine made. Again, probably not something you're going to find in Macy's. So, and the skirt is kind of, hippie style. The bracelet, big bracelet on her wrist, the purse as well. And then on the right, we have tie-dye. So definitely a quality that is closely associated with hippies and the counterculture. And so here we have another kind of hippie chick. You can tell by her dress is very colorful, expressive. She's wearing, looks like several necklaces, several bracelets. Again, the headband and the long hair. So, okay, and now we're into some imagery with Woodstock. So we've talked about this image before, but I wanted to also show you the image that's being used for the 50th anniversary of Woodstock at Watkins Glen, not at Bethel Woods. So this is the image that they're using for Watkins Glen, and so we kind of have this splatter effect of paint. And so this is kind of evocative of Jackson Pollock. So, splatter artist. The text, the Woodstock 50 and the August 16th, 17th Watkins Glen, it's a bit stylized in terms of the hand lettering, but this is not hand lettering. It's obviously a font. And then we have more plain text at the top. but we still have the dove, we still have the red background, and we still have the guitar, the end of the guitar neck. So, okay, moving on. Okay, so this is an image that I put on our D2L page under the announcements. And this is, we talked about it in class last week. This is pretty typical of music festival posters that we're seeing these days. But if you look at the top where it says Mountain Jam and it has the guitar, this seems like a Wes Wilson image, but it's not. And not only that, but it's done with computers. If you split the thing down the middle, other than the guitar and the wording, everything that's around the guitar, kind of the sunburst and the things that look like wings and then more fire, if you look left and right, it's all perfectly balanced in this image. And so it was not done by hand. It was done, using computers. Okay. This final image is just a smorgasbord of imagery and symbolism and semiotics. So again, we've got the Woodstock guitar neck with the dove on it. Dove, obviously a symbol of peace. We also have two people who were featured on the first Woodstock album that came out. They were standing there toward the end of the festival and just holding on to each other, wrapped in a blanket, basically. And we'll talk more about them later. But we got Jimi Hendrix at the top, kind of an Afro power woman in the lower left, and she's got these ziggy zaggies on her sunglasses. So first she's wearing sunglasses, but then kind of electric as well. She's wearing something in her hair that comes down over her forehead. She's got some big hoopy earrings on. We also see kind of some representation of paisley right below her head, and paisley often associated with hippie culture. We see a sun, sunburst. We see the American flag. We see what looks like a pot leaf at the top in the center. We see a Volkswagen Beetle and painted up, with hippie power on it. So a lot of things going on in this image. So I would have to sit down and study all of these images, individually to kind of say exactly, my best guess about what they mean. But I just want to show you that visual text is very powerful and very much a part of counterculture. And I'm hoping that by showing you some of this and just talking about it, that it'll help you some with your semiotics analysis. So that's about all I've got at this point. Thanks for listening, and I'll be talking to you soon. Thank you very much.